I grew up in the Midwest, certainly very aware of the history with the Chicago Bears, and being here is a little bit surreal. I want to thank everybody in Denver with the Broncos organization, as well as the New Orleans Saints. Over the last 6 years, I've had a lot of people that have had huge impacts on me, and I wouldn't be sitting in front of you if they didn't impart knowledge and wisdom into me. I want to thank Coach Payton first and foremost, just because twice he's pulled me from relative anonymity. Once when I was 22 and I was at the University of Iowa, he gave me my first NFL job and allowed me to come into New Orleans and work for him for 3 years. Then I got a chance to be with Coach Allen for a year. When Sean went to Denver, I followed him out there, and he gave me a promotion, and I was able to be a position coach for the first time. And so, I've learned so much from Sean. He's a Hall of Fame head coach, and he's had a big impact on me and how I've ended up here. Certainly very excited for the opportunity to be here. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and I can't wait to dive in with Ben and the rest of the offensive staff. My goal is to be as supportive as possible to Ben, our players, and be a resource in any way that I can be. It's an honor to be here, and looking forward to getting to work.
Perfect. We'll go first to Courtney Cronin from ESPN.
Hey, Declan, welcome to Chicago. 2 questions here. Number 1, you mentioned Sean Payton. What's the connection there? How did you first, link up with him to be brought onto that staff in New Orleans initially?
Yeah, so actually a guy by the name of Brendan Nugent, who actually was just in Seattle, he was the assistant O-line coach, and I knew him from kind of when I was a little kid. And he didn't know me at all as a coach, but I reached out to him when I was a student assistant at the University of Iowa, and I wanted to kind of basically get around as many NFL buildings as I could. And so I asked if I could come visit for OTAs. I was able to. I basically paid my own way. I was making $7,000 at Iowa, but I paid for this plane ticket to go down there, and I spent 2 days around the staff, and they were gracious enough to allow me in there. I actually sat in Dan Campbell's meeting room while he was the tight end coach, and that was my first exposure to those guys. And then when Joe Brady left and he went to LSU, I actually kind of just threw my name in the hat, and there was a lot of people interviewing for that offensive assistant and quality control role, and I was fortunate enough to get an interview and go down there, and it went well, and here we are.
And I know, I'm sure you've heard from press conferences, doing your research, what some of the players have said about last year, that they kind of demanded more accountability and wanted it from the coaching staff. Obviously, you're one of the younger coordinators in the league. You haven't coached every position on offense. How are you going to get the buy-in and be able to coach players who might either be older than you or might have more experience, and kind of as you're feeling your way out in your first time as an OC?
Yeah, I think knowledge is power, and that is what the guys care about ultimately. Last year was the first time that I've ever actually been older than all the players in my room. And so, I've been coaching. This is going to be my 10th year. But that's really kind of been a part of, my journey to this point. But I think players care about, can you help me first and foremost? Can you put me in a position to be successful to help the organization and my family? And that's earned, you have to put in the work and earn that trust and that confidence. And that's my plan here, hit the ground running and go to work.
We'll go next to Dan Weir from the Chicago Tribune. Go ahead, Dan.
Hey, Declan, you obviously mentioned your time around Sean in 2 places. Obviously, he's a head coach who calls plays offensively. I'm curious what you learned the last 2 years about how Joe Lombardi was a resource for Sean in that relationship. And then you're obviously further removed in New Orleans, but Pete was a right-hand man for Sean for so long. What you've taken from those 2 guys that will help you help Ben?
Yeah, so those 2 guys are 2 people that I look up to a lot. They've had huge impacts on my life, Joe and Pete. And I was actually talking to Ben about that during the interview, because it was like, basically my entire time, 5 of my 6 years in the NFL, there's been this position that was Pete and Joe. The biggest thing is high levels of communication from, that position, the ability to utilize all the resources within the staff and give very direct, not only messaging, but direction to what we're trying to accomplish. The biggest thing is that you're on the same page as the play caller. And so me and Ben are going to have to spend a ton of time together, diving into film. And I'm really, really excited to go do that. And to make sure that I see the game the same way he sees it, to be able to orchestrate it and set the table for him and, really make sure that we're doing it the way he wants to do it.
As a little bit of an extension of that, how do you sort of envision or describe the job description in season? Because Ben was very clear last week that it's a table setting role.
Yeah.
And there's things that he needs early in the week as he's overseeing everything else from you to help him get his week off to a good start.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you said table setting role. I think that's a great way to describe it. Ben is going to have less time than he's ever had as a play caller. And so, obviously I think that that's kind of a thing that's morphing as we go. We'll kind of figure out what that looks like. But my job is really going to be to organize and detail, the game plan initially, utilizing, our staff. Everybody will have different assignments, kind of how we are going to build this thing with schematically as we attack a defense. But basically, I have to do that work that he's not going to have time to do. And he's going to have to be able to trust me that I'm going to be able to give him the correct information that he needs as a decision maker. And then, really throughout the week, streamlining the teaching progression for the players, making sure that everything is built around them. Myself, Ben, and the rest of the staff, we're not going to take a snap this year. We have to make sure that our players understand their toolbox so that they can go out and play fast and play at a high level.
We'll go next to Pat Finley from the Chicago Sun-Times. Go ahead, Pat.
Hey, Declan, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good. From afar, what did you see in Caleb Williams that you're intrigued by, and what did you see in Caleb Williams that you're eager to get down and try to fine tune on the other side of that?
Yeah. So, obviously I didn't spend a ton of time. Like, I'm not in the same division. Like, Ben got to see him on crossover film quite a bit. We're pretty early in the process. Obviously, in the draft process, the arm talent it's crazy. I mean, it's very, very impressive. He's a very impressive player. I got to watch him a little bit when he was at USC. Didn't get a chance to watch him as much this past year. I've started to dive into him, but I wouldn't say that that's a full evaluation quite yet. I don't think that would be fair. I think the biggest thing is just the talent of the kid, the ability to use his legs. He is a tough kid. You see it on tape. Obviously the communication and all that stuff, but his second act, his ability to evade the pocket, his ability to create is a special thing. And it's something that I got to see with Bo in Denver last year. That ability to evade and put pressure on the defense and kind of be the eraser of game planning mistakes. I think that's really exciting about him.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll go next to Scott Bear from Marquee. Go ahead, Scott.
How's it going, Coach? In his introductory press conference, Ben Johnson talked about taking his scheme and kind of ripping it down to the studs and then rebuilding it around the talent that's on the roster. Two-part question. Number one, can you talk about your role in that process? And number two, are you excited about the prospect of kind of taking this system and really kind of helping these players maximize their talents?
Yeah. So I think that we'll all have a role in it, the whole staff, as we sit down and we kind of look at, like, Ben has been great. He's basically like, hey, I want to take this thing and shape it around the personnel. I think our whole staff will be able to sit down and dig further into that. Can you repeat the second part of your question again, please? I think you said something about if I would be excited to do that. I would be. I'm very excited to jump into it. Obviously watching Detroit from afar, there's a lot of similarities between what we did in New Orleans and Denver and the offense that he's built. I think it's really the modern version of that. And so I'm very excited to kind of sit down with Ben, discuss scheme, discuss things that fit our personnel, and be able to shape this thing around the personnel that we have here.
We'll go next to Adam Johns of The Athletic. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Declan, kind of off that, I was wondering if you could take us through Bo Nix's rookie season a little bit, like what worked, what didn't work. How did you see his relationship with Sean kind of evolve? And then what did you learn? What did you gain from that experience that you could take here to Chicago?
Yeah, I think that's it's a little bit broad, you know what I mean? Like what was good, what was bad. I think that there's a progression to every step of this, and that is first and foremost mastering the language of it, mastering, being able to communicate and understand where the pieces are supposed to be and be able to envision those things. And I think Bo got better as the year went on and got more comfortable within the offense. We certainly tried to shape it around him. There were things that we did that were different than we had ever done, allowing him to try to evade the pocket and get out into space where he wanted to play. That was something that, we hit a big play against Kansas City late in the game on something that we had never, in previous years ever had before. And so I think first and foremost, like Caleb being in here, going through all of his tape, evaluating, what we feel like he's good at, what we feel like he's really capable of going out and being the best in the world at, excelling at it, and trying to shape and build the offense around that. I would say that's what we try to do with Bo, and that's what we're going to do here.
Last two, we'll go next to Sean Hammond of Shaw Media. Go ahead, Sean.
Hi, Declan. Welcome to Chicago. I was wondering if you could take us back in time a little bit, just about your decision to get into coaching. You were playing baseball at Iowa Western. Why did you sort of shift gears and head into coaching football?
Yeah, so I was around coaching my whole life. I grew up around it, and I really knew at some point in time I was going to want to coach football. I had a strong interest in that. The most important thing, like the reason I coach is people and the relationships and the ability to impact young people. And at the time it was going into college. I didn't know how good I would be at it. To be quite frank, if I wasn't very good at it, I would be coaching at a high school somewhere right now, probably, or a lower level. And that would be, this is my passion. That's why I did it. I wanted to be able to impact young lives and change people's lives. And so, I got into it. I got to Iowa, and I basically said, it's this or nothing. I don't have a plan B. I'm going to put everything I have into this. And I did that. And, obviously it has led us here.
What did that look like in terms of was that late hours? What is being a student assistant like look like? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's a very unique thing because very broad title there. Basically what a graduate assistant is or what a quality control is in the NFL. They're very similar. Yes, there's some late hours, but basically you're doing all the organizational things, especially early on in my time at Iowa. It was anything that nobody wanted to do, that was my job. And so learning, the game breakdown, how we were going to talk about defense, learning how to draw the playbook, basically being responsible for all the teaching material, because, we're teachers. And so being responsible for the teaching material, learning how that gets installed, all those things to try to put our guys in position to have success.
Last one for you, Coach. We have Mark Carmen, CHGO. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Declan, just wondering, was this at all on your radar this year that you could get to this position? Were you thinking well, if Ben goes there, maybe he'll be calling me?
No, I would say not. I've always felt like you got to be the best in the world where your feet are. And that was what I was, aiming to do. I was trying to be the best tight end coach that I could be in Denver. I've been, preparing for this job, from the very beginning. The last 10 years have kind of culminated in, arriving here. But no, I mean, this is something that, I'm very excited about. I'm very excited to be here, but I wasn't, sitting there looking out the front of the car, looking at the next thing. I was really just trying to focus on, I was really proud of, what we did in Denver. Vegas had us at 5 wins and we ended up being a playoff team. And, to be able to turn a program around like that, it takes, focus on the goal at hand. And that's what I was focused on.